In business today, three things to know. First, iPhone sales explode. We'll run down the earnings report for the world's largest company. Then, healthcare rejected. A federal appeals court deals a blow to the Affordable Care Act, ruling that federal subsidies are illegal unless offered through a state exchange. What the ruling means and what is next. And stomped by the GOP. Business finds fewer friends among Republican lawmakers. Who can business turn to now? The Rise Exchange starts now. Hello, everyone. I'm Andrew Schmertz. It's probably the only thing that can push Ukraine and the Middle East out of the top headlines for a business show. Apple. It is one of the most widely watched earnings report each quarter. How Apple did and what its future looks like now. Of course, there are members of the Apple Can Do No Wrong cult and those always looking to bash the maker of the iPhone and iPad. We are just getting the numbers in for the third quarter, Apple's fiscal third quarter, and here they are. Apple earning $1.28 a share. That's beating expectations by a nickel. However, revenue of $37.4 billion coming in just a little bit light. David Begnaud from the CBS Money Watch desk in New York has a rundown. David, good afternoon to you.
Good afternoon.
Any surprises here?
Look, the results, Andrew, were interesting. Apple's reported revenue came in just shy of analysts' expectations. Revenue rose modestly, 6% from the same period a year earlier, ending the quarter at $35.32 billion. iPhone sales finished up nearly 13%, just shy of analysts' projections for sales of 35.9 million phones.
And its stock is trading down a little bit, so maybe some disappointment in the numbers. What were investors basically looking for here, do you think?
Analysts were projecting revenue for the third quarter in the range of 36 to 38 billion. That's up from 35.32 billion earnings from the same period last year. Shares have risen about 25% since the favorable second quarter earnings in April, stemming from anticipation of new products.
Now, Apple has been asking suppliers to manufacture between 70 and 80 million iPhone 6 units. Do you expect there to be so much demand for it now with these numbers?
Look, better than expected iPhone sales in the March quarter may indicate that another quarter of better than expected sales lies ahead. But figures from this quarter indicate that iPhone sales did not meet analysts' expectation for the sales period.
However, if you look at its main competitor, Samsung obviously struggling a little bit with its Android, and it faces significant competition here. So is there a sense, though, that the general market for smartphones is just slowing down globally?
Is Apple looking for too much? Look, it seems the demand for the larger screen smartphones, for example, is not going away, and that's not here in the U.S. Bigger screen smartphones are popular in China and other emerging markets where the handheld phone is replacing the personal computer as the main computing device.
Okay. David Begnaud from the CBS Money Watch desk in New York. Thank you so much. And late today, the U.S. Federal Aviation Administration halted all American flights to Israel after a rocket from Hamas exploded near Ben Gurion Airport in Tel Aviv. The suspension is right now for 24 hours. Delta had already canceled its flights after it diverted one from Tel Aviv to Paris. Russ Amir is CEO of Aero Consulting Experts and a former commercial pilot with United Airlines. He joins us right now by phone from Little Rock, Arkansas. Ross, thank you for providing us a little bit of insight here. First, how unprecedented is this to close down an entire airport to international travel?
Good afternoon, Andrew. Ross Amer. It's not definitely unusual. It has happened in the past where there was a very volatile situation somewhere around the world where either airlines or the FAA stopped the commercial traffic.
Do you think this was the right move to make? Because there's been some criticism of the FAA today that it overreacted.
No, I think I usually don't see eye to eye with FAA being a commercial pilot.
Yeah, well, most pilots fall into that. True.
Yeah. However, I think this particular decision was correct. Imagine if something happens in this very, very volatile situation, FAA will be definitely blamed. And as you know, airlines actually did that on their own before even FAA started this. So this decision, although very, very severe, I think it's a right decision.
And clearly, part of the thinking here was because of the Malaysia Air downing.
That is very correct, because, as you know, usually there's people that take advantage of a bad situation, and probably some copycats might want to do something like that, and it gives them ideas. And the fact that anytime there's a commercial traffic near an airport like Ben Gurion that is very close to the water, where the aircraft has to get close descent for takeoff and landings, it gives a clear shot with somebody on a dinghy from over the water, probably.
Yeah, but the ban is only in place for 24 hours, and I just have to ask, what is possibly going to change in that region in 24 hours?
I'm afraid nothing. That 24 hours may be extended. I hope that both airlines and FAA would take a very close look at the situation, make sure that the traveling public is not in any danger. Yes, I realize that this is very, very big inconvenience for passengers, even for air commerce. But sometimes you have to caution or err on the side of the caution.
Well, we saw that after 9/11 when the U.S. skies were shut down for several days. But, you mentioned the inconvenience. This is a major setback to Israel because there's no question it's going to have a financial impact. We know that commercial aviation is a significant driver of economic activity.
You're absolutely correct. Their tourism, everything basically in a small nation like Israel depends on air commerce. And if you stop air commerce, you've basically stopped the influx of just about everything in and out of that country. So it will not only affect the airlines, El Al. El Al is not heeding to this particular stoppage, but all other carriers. And I'm sure the Europeans will follow the lead and stop this. So this will have definite effect on Israel.
Okay, Ross Amer, CEO of Aero Consulting Experts from Little Rock, Arkansas. Thanks for your help today.
My pleasure.
Well, Apple and the Middle East only part of the story. The market's brushing off rising global anxiety and focusing on strong earnings instead. Here are the final numbers. The Dow Jones Industrial Average closing up 61.81 to 17,113. The S&P 500, that's a record at 1983.53. And the NASDAQ up 31.31. More earnings news coming in from some other big companies besides Apple, including their age-old, sort of formal rival, I would say. Microsoft reporting a big miss in earnings for its shareholders. The company's 55 cents per share, 5 cents below estimates. However, it did beat top-line revenue expectations, raking in $23.38 billion. It says because it focused on developing new mobile and cloud technologies. McDonald's also reporting quarterly earnings. Its revenue of $7.18 billion, just shy of expectations. Earnings per share were 4 cents less than estimates. McDonald's saying its poor performance this quarter was due to fewer customers in stores. Coca-Cola also falling short of expectations in the second quarter. The world's largest beverage producer reporting revenue of $12.57 billion, which it said was hurt by dwindling sales in North America due to higher prices. Coca-Cola reporting earnings per share of 58 cents. 58 cents. It's interesting because Coca-Cola and McDonald's sometimes tie together because McDonald's, of course, selling Coca-Cola products. Comcast announcing it beat earnings expectations even though revenue was below forecast. The broadcast cable company said its revenue totaled $16.84 billion this quarter and also reporting earnings per share of 75 cents, boosted by increased video and high-speed internet subscription services. And one more to report, cell phone service provider Verizon saying its revenue of $31.5 billion beat expectations by 1%. Earnings per share coming in 90 cents, were a penny above estimates. Verizon saying increased subscriptions were due to a focus on producing new devices, with tablets selling the most this quarter. Taking a look at commodities. Gold closing down 7.30 and oil pulling back just 17 cents. Some economic news. Labor Department saying U.S. consumer prices rose 3% in June, slightly lower than in May. And existing home sales rose for the third straight month. According to the National Association of Realtors, sales beat analyst expectations, rising 2.6% to an annual rate of 5.04 million units. Sam Stovall is with S&P Capital IQ here with more on global instability and earnings. Sam, with everything going on in the world, the markets are saying we don't give a damn, aren't they?
That's right. The markets are basically looking inward, meaning they've pretty much sort of ruled out playing in the international waters at this point, and are really focusing on the U.S. and specifically focusing on U.S. large cap stocks. Earnings are coming in pretty well. 7% is what S&P Capital IQ is now expecting for the second quarter, up from the 6.6% initial estimate. And it's usually that the estimates are light of reality, and that reality ends up being anywhere from 2 to 4 percentage points better than expectations. So we could be up close to 10%.
Are we seeing that so far, though, in the companies that are reporting in the S&P 500?
We are. At one point, we sort of dipped early in the reporting period to close to a 6% gain, but now we've recovered and up to 7%.
And how good are the earnings? You know, we've talked over and over again for the past year or so on this program that the results are going to the bottom line because of cuts and not top-line revenue growth.
Well, you're absolutely right. Expectations in the beginning of the quarter were for a 4.05% increase. Now it's less than 3.8% increase. So we're looking at revenues that are up substantially less than earnings expectations. Companies usually, through cost-cutting, share repurchases, can make earnings look a little better than revenues.
Yeah, there's also some tricks that they put in there.
Exactly. But you're right that the revenues have really been undercutting earnings expectations.
Anything that we see in the sectors and reporting from earnings that stand out?
Well, yes, all 10 are expected to post positive year-over-year percent changes in this quarter. Strength is in the later cycle performers, materials, energy among the better. Technology also showing an increase of about 9%, whereas financials are among the weakest category. They had been looking to post negative year-over-year, but now they're eking out a less than 1% increase.
Let's look at inflation right now. The CPI is starting to creep up, and the reports are saying sort of the normalized path of inflationary growth that you would expect in a recovery. Do we agree with that?
Well, to an extent, but I still think that inflation is very important when trying to decide whether the market is fairly valued. I look at something called the rule of 20, which adds the PE plus inflation. If it equals 20, then we have a fairly valued market. Right now, the PE on trailing 12-month as reported earnings, which like Prego spaghetti sauce has everything in there, add to that the 2.1% year-over-year increase in inflation, and the rule of 20 is now closer to 21.5. So we're sort of
you're thinking this
up.
market is getting a little expensive.
It's getting a little expensive right now. The PE is higher than 8 of the last 11 bull market tops.
So what? And we've had this bull market go on and on and on now for quite some time. What would upset the apple cart here? Worse global situation, or some inflationary pressures where the Fed's going to step in, or anything, frankly, that just spooks investors right now?
The focus is on economic expansion, recession, and the impact on earnings. That's why, yes, headline on Ukraine, but where's it going to fall to the bottom line? Nowhere. Let's not worry about it. But next Wednesday, July 30th, we get the first read of Q2 GDP. Everyone says that the first quarter near 3% decline was weather-related.
Yeah.
If we don't get a gain of close to 3% or so, I think people are going to start to worry.
I'll say this. The sun has been out a lot in the spring, and you're not going to be able to say the weather unless you say the weather was so nice people went to the beach and didn't go shopping. So right. I wonder if that's the excuse that we're going to get.
Right.
We'll find out what those numbers come in. Sam Stovall, thank you so much.
My
Talk to you
pleasure.
next week. Coming up, did a federal appeals court deal a devastating blow to Obamacare? You're watching Rise Exchange.
I think news does make people put things in black and white terms just so that they have a dividing line between what their viewers like and dislike.
When they see a person of color, they either think that they're not going to do anything, they're either on drugs, or they got pregnant at an early age. And I just want to say that that's not true.
It tends to reflect more the interests of the upper income people and the upper income interests.
Arise News, every culture, every angle.
Welcome back to Arise Exchange, a significant ruling issue today that could deal a major blow to the Affordable Care Act, also known as Obamacare. A federal appeals court ruled that the IRS went too far in extending subsidies to those who buy insurance through the federal government's website, healthcare.gov, not through the state sites. Here to break down all of this for us is Horace Cooper, senior fellow at the National Center for Public Policy Research. Horace joins us from Washington. I'll tell you, Horace, this law is becoming the full employment act for lawyers and federal judges. Those of us who thought the Supreme Court sort of settled this issue now see more decisions coming out. How does this differ from what the court has said before?
Well, actually, I wasn't sure that the court settled this issue. It appeared to me that the court put this on a temporary hold to allow other kinds of legal attacks to be able to go forward. What the court said last time was, you've made multiple challenges to this act. We're going to allow it to continue on one grounds, and that is that it is essentially a federal tax measure. You don't have the power under the Commerce Authority to compel this behavior, and you can't make the states expand their Medicaid programs or create these exchanges. It's going to have to be voluntary. What is happening is what the court managed to uphold doesn't align well with what the original intentions were of Congress when they were doing this. But part of that problem is occurring precisely because of the ham-fisted and rushed way that Congress ultimately acted when it adopted this measure.
Okay, so let's break this down for you and specifically get to what the court said was illegal. It relates to the federal exchange. Is that correct?
That's
not
exactly
the state's
right.
Exchange, that the Congress never authorized the use of the federal exchange.
So Congress only gave a limited authorization for the federal exchange to operate, but what the law that they wrote said was that if you participated in your state exchange, you would get substantial discounts. If it's normally $400 a month for your insurance policy, it could probably be like $99, which is what's happening for a Wyoming person who applies and uses the federal exchange because there is no state exchange equivalent. This ruling today says, I'm sorry, if you can't get Wyoming to set up an exchange, you're not going to be able to get the discount. You're going to pay $400. If it's hard now to get people to participate, it's going to be really hard at that higher premium rate.
So what happens now to all of the people who sign up through the federal exchange because their state chose not to participate?
Well, so under many executive actions that the White House has taken, they've just simply said, we're going to herd people into a federal program. Those people are going to be wondering what is likely to happen. The issue here isn't going to get resolved this year. It wasn't resolved this day. But any ambiguity for a program that's unpopular, for a program that's not working too well, is likely to make it even harder to administer.
Horace, for conservatives who don't like this law, is this going to give the Supreme Court a second bite at the apple here? Because John Roberts was very criticized, of course, by people on the right for upholding the portion that you talked about, calling it a tax. And now maybe they have some wiggle room, and do you think they'll take advantage of it?
Well, it's more than wiggle room. This law was written way too quickly. And I don't want to go back through that process, but a lot of folks don't understand that the bill itself has pages that don't line up. It makes references to things that aren't in existence. And as a result, the IRS and the Department of Treasury and HHS have tried to come up with ways to make it make sense. What they're now going to be asking Mr. Roberts to do on the Supreme Court is bless that and say, you know, we meant well, we were trying hard, have some deference and allow us to do this. What the D.C. Circuit said was, we're willing to give you all the deference in the world, but you can't take language that explicitly says, no, only for the state will you get this state exchange operated.
And we have to wrap up, Horace, but the D.C. Circuit does tend to be a little bit on the conservative side, correct?
Well, it is, but if they go to en banc, it's likely that even this ruling might get overturned. That's why I say this isn't going to be a decision that gets resolved this month or even this year. This is clearly heading to the Supreme Court, but it creates some instability in the program.
Indeed. Horace Cooper in Washington, D.C. Thank you.
Thank you.
Time now for our business ticker stories making headlines across the nation and the world. China's meat scandal widens. Remember, we told you about this story yesterday. It is hitting more big-name chains. Starbucks, Burger King, and Papa John's are the latest to join a growing list of fast food restaurants, including McDonald's and Yum Brands, who were sold expired meats. Chinese authorities continue their investigation after shutting down the Shanghai meat supplier Heath Foods, which is U.S.-owned by OSI Group. Food safety has long been a top concern for China following a string of scares over milk, medicine, and other goods. Saudi Arabia says it will open up its stock exchange to direct investment from foreign financial institutions. The largest stock exchange in the Arab world is currently valued at about $530 billion and would be one of the largest to accept foreign money. Local authorities expect the move, which would go into effect early next year, to help diversify the economy and create jobs. And it's another case of regulation nation. A California couple thought they were answering their governor's urgent call to conserve water in the drought-stricken state. 80% of California is in a drought. But instead, they are now facing up to a $500 fine for not watering their lawn. The city of Glendora, where they live, notified the homeowners that they have 60 days to bring their Browning lawn up to snuff or else. Apparently, better to have a green lawn than water in California. We're not sure how Governor Brown feels about his message being ignored. Ahead, when the guy who used Airbnb to rent your apartment refuses to leave. You're watching Arise Exchange.
If I was building my own news network, first thing I think I'd want high-quality reporters, very educated, intelligent people.
Hello, I'm Francesca Maxime.
I'm Julian Phillips.
I'm Wendy Gillette.
I'm Sophia Song Hai.
I'm Gary Anthony Ramsey. Thank you for joining us here in New York City.
I would like to see more people of color represented in high positions in media.
We've got world-class journalists, veteran journalists who have been in this industry for decades, not just in front of the camera, but behind the scenes as well.
People need to understand the problems that are going on in the community are much closer than we actually think they are.
Kayla Phillips is one of the shoppers who is suing Barney's, and she is here with her attorney. What is it that you want from them?
Not to judge every African-American person that comes in your store.
Pull up to the bar, liquid lunch, things that make us want to drink. There are some downsides to using Airbnb, the social media home sharing service, to rent out your house, condo, or apartment. Sometimes the renters leave the place trashed, or maybe invite others over, or in one case, never leave. That's what's happened to Corey Chagall, who advertised her 600-square-foot Palm Springs, California condo on Airbnb. One man, who goes by the name Maxim, contacted her and said he needed a place to stay for more than a month. However, the condo owner says he immediately began complaining about the accommodations and demanded a refund. Chagall says she had trouble contacting Airbnb, who eventually did respond and told the unwanted renter to leave. But he did not, and still hasn't, 2 months later. It appears that because he stayed for more than a month, he has rights as a tenant. This is California, after all. And so Chagall had to hire a lawyer to have him evicted. As for Airbnb, they issued a generic statement to Business Insider saying that the overwhelming majority of Airbnb's 15 million users have had a good experience. Their places weren't trashed, people didn't show up and drink too much, and it's trying to work on a better and stronger platform. And that takes us to our favorite person of the day, when we pick one person who grabbed our attention and not for the right reasons. We all like to post photos of ourselves on Facebook and the like, showing off new clothes or bragging about places we visit or the people we interview on television. But perhaps it's best not to post a picture of yourself wearing the dress you stole. 27-year-old Daniel Saxton from West Frankfort, Illinois, was arrested after she did just that, posting numerous selfies of her wearing a dress she allegedly stole from a clothing boutique. Saxton was caught after the store's owner revealed surveillance footage of the theft and then posted a Facebook message himself asking for people to be on the lookout for anyone who was wearing the dress. And it just took a few hours. That's when Saxton posted, quote, "Love my new dress," and a picture of it online. She was busted shortly thereafter. So for not being able to stop yourself from telling the world you just stole something, Daniel Saxton is our favorite person of the day. Next, has the GOP abandoned business? You're watching Arise Exchange.
I believe that people are watching news less today, definitely. I think that more so people are going online to catch their news.
We've numbed the human mind to murders and all these bad things.
The content is a constant loop of the same stuff. So there needs to be, new content all the time.
Arise News, every culture, every angle.
For several years, big business and the GOP sang from the same hymn sheet, promoting lower taxes and cutting government spending. But the rise of the Tea Party and the effort in some states to oust Republican office holders through primary challenges has led to fraying of the ties. Headley Heath is the senior policy analyst at the Independent Women's Forum, and she joins us by the phone to discuss this topic. Headley, there was a story basically in the Financial Times that said that the days of business and the GOP working together appear to be coming undone. Do you think that's true when you talk about immigration, when you talk about money spent on infrastructure policies, et cetera?
The alignment of big business with a particular party in this country, certainly I believe the lines have become more hazy. We've seen, I believe, a greater measure of populism in the stances of the Republican Party, maybe because of the influence of libertarian ideas. But we've also seen, unfortunately, greater coziness on the left between big business and the Obama administration or Democrats in the Senate. So it is becoming a more messy landscape when it comes to the support that big businesses are putting into both parties.
Well, it seems whatever party's in charge sort of engages in corporate cronyism a little bit. And I'm wondering if that's sort of giving rise to those in the GOP. And you say a populist movement to really bash big business, which, of course, for years now with the recession has been seen not necessarily in the best interests of Americans.
That's right. I think there's a growing awareness among the American populace about bailouts and subsidies and special treatment that some industry lobbying groups secure for themselves. And it's to the expense of us all, because not only do they manage to get some competitive advantage through these special treatments from the government, but they also, this is harmful to consumers because we end up with fewer options. And the favoring of one business over another, even within industries, ultimately is harmful to innovation. I said earlier that the Obama administration is guilty of this too. If you look at green energy, for example, the public was very aware of the Solyndra scandal, and that was a cronyist deal, no doubt. So
government needs to stop. Government needs to stop picking winners and losers. The American public should pick the winners and losers. But when you're talking about regulatory efforts, big business really sucks up to whatever party is in control, because big business writes the regulations, because that's how they can keep competitors away.
That's right, and that's why I believe we need to go back to, a focus on small business, a focus on defending the little guy, because ultimately, big business and other big businesses of all size can pretend to be against regulations, but at the end of the day, sometimes big businesses favor regulations that give them a competitive advantage and might put their opponents or their smaller competitors into bankruptcy. So some of these regulations that we talk about, the regulatory compliance effort, it costs so much that for a small business can really be damaging.
Yeah, and I don't think the Tea Party, though, out there is a friend of small business either, because, when you're just not for any regulations or you're more libertarian, that's not necessarily good for small businesses, especially on immigration.
Well, the U.S. Chamber of Commerce has been very much in favor of immigration reform. We do see a break in a large swath of the Republican Party, including some Tea Party advocates when it comes to the issue of immigration. But there are some Republicans who are stepping away from their party on this issue, who are in favor of immigration reform, especially making legal immigration more streamlined and easier for people so that they can work and can contribute to our economy and to our society. So there is, I believe, a split among Republicans when it comes to the issue of immigration. It's not a clear party line delineation on that particular issue.
Okay, Headley, Heath, Senior Policy Analyst at the Independent Women's Forum. As always, thank you.
Thank you.
Tomorrow on Arise Exchange, we'll give you a preview of the U.S.-Africa Leaders Summit starting next week in D.C., where more than 45 heads of state and 100 ministers will be in attendance. Let's take a look at the markets once again. Really, earnings news powering the markets across the board. Green arrows all around. I'm Andrew Schmertz. Thanks for watching Arise Exchange. See you tomorrow.